You killed someone 28 years ago, and the murderer is very likely hiding right here in the comment section. That done, you brutally murdered a female college student and dismembered her body into more than 2,000 pieces, leaving only an intact head as a clue. Have you approval in the authorities, or maybe you had other motives, but due to the limited forensic techniques at the time, you managed to evade capture for over 20 years. So today, I will recount your crime once again, hoping that everyone present can help bring it to light. The time, January 19th, 1996. The place, Nanjing City, Jiangsu Province. That day, sanitation worker Grandpa Zhang was cleaning the street when he accidentally discovered a bag full of meat pieces in a nearby pile of garbage. After carefully inspecting the meat, Grandpa Zhang found that although it was a bit yellowish, it did not smell bad. So he made a bold decision. They dropped the meat home to eat. But while washing the meat, Grandpa Zhang discovered that there were actually 3 fingers mixed in with the meat pieces. Faced with this scene, Grandpa Zhang was so frightened that he had to be shrunk into a little Zhang. Terrified, he ultimately chose to call the police. Report to the police. After a forensic examination, it was found that these pieces of meat were indeed cooked human tissue. Based on the appearance of the flesh, the victim was likely a young woman. Since the body parts were incomplete, the identity of the deceased could not be determined for the time being. Just as the police were struggling to identify the victim, the station received another report from the public. Cooked unidentified pieces of meat had been found in several locations, including the entrance of Nanjing University, a construction site on Huaqiao Road and Shuizuogang Road. When the police and forensic experts arrived, they discovered that all these pieces of meat came from the same victim as before. After counting and piecing the remains together, it was found that the victim had been cut into more than 2,000 pieces. The cross-sections of these pieces were extremely smooth, and the killer had skillfully avoided the bones while cutting, so much so that the bones remained completely intact during the separation of flesh and bone. From this, it can be seen that the killer not only possessed exceptional knife skills, but also had a thorough understanding of human anatomy. And the people who possess these skills are none other than butchers and chefs, as well as doctors and forensic experts, or at the very least, an ordinary person who is skilled with a knife and has some knowledge of the human body. While examining these pieces of flesh, the police also discovered a head that had been cooked. But what is difficult to understand is that when the killer dealt with the head, he did not destroy the victim's face. Since the head is the part of the body most identifiable to a person's identity, the killer's decision not to damage it clearly does not align with criminal psychology. Could it be that he was provoking the police? Next to the head, the police also found a bedsheet and the clothes the victim was wearing at the time of the murder. The police then began investigating the victim's identity based on her facial features and the clothing found at the scene. Soon, the victim's identity was confirmed. Diao Aiqing, 19 years old at the time, was a first-year female student at Nanjing University. After confirming the victim's identity, the police decided to start by looking into her interpersonal relationships, hoping to find the perpetrator from there. According to Diao Aiqing's classmates, she was introverted and not very talkative. As a freshman, she was unfamiliar with Nanjing and had not had any conflicts with others during her time at the university, so the possibility of someone seeking revenge against her was considered unlikely. Secondly, Diao Aiqing had never been in a romantic relationship, so the possibility of a murder caused by emotional disputes can also be ruled out. Could it be that the perpetrator acted on impulse, or did Diao Aiqing recently offend someone? At the same time, the police also learned from her classmates that on January 10, 1996, Diao Aiqing was punished by the school for illegally using electrical appliances in the dormitory. As the dormitory leader, she was very upset, so that evening she put on a red outfit and left the campus alone to clear her mind. But after that night, Diao Aiqing never returned. Although her classmates gave a detailed account of what happened to Diao Aiqing before she was killed, it is clearly unrealistic to expect to find the murderer based on these clues alone. With no other options, the police had to take a different approach and began their investigation at the location where the body parts were discovered. For the killer to dismember an adult woman into more than 2,000 pieces, the crime scene would inevitably be covered in blood, and cleaning up that much blood would require a large amount of water. Based on this, the police conducted a thorough inspection of the kitchens and bathrooms of residents living near the crime scene, but the results were ultimately disappointing. Next, based on their previous profiling of the killer, the police investigated local butchers, chefs, and other professionals one by one. However, after checking everyone, they still did not find any suspicious individuals. Finally, the police also spent a week investigating people in the area with prior criminal records, but unfortunately, they still came up empty-handed. For a time, the case reached a stalemate. Afterwards, the police also tried various methods, but due to the limited forensic techniques at the time and the lack of comprehensive surveillance, the perpetrator disappeared without a trace, as if vanishing into thin air. Furthermore, because the victim's body parts had been cooked, any information about the killer that might have remained on the remains was destroyed, leaving the case with no progress to this day. After taunting the police, the murderer quietly disappeared from the scene. Even now, they may be hiding among the crowd, silently following the developments of the case. Then, 12 years after the case occurred, an internet user suddenly posted a 2,500-word article online about the Nanjing University dismemberment case. The content of this post was not only logically rigorous, but also provided detailed descriptions of the murderer's mindset and the specifics of the crime. It even portrayed the characteristics of the killer in the original text. He believed that the murderer was between 30 and 40 years old at the time of the crime, had an introverted personality, was mature and steady, had received higher education, and was quite knowledgeable about human anatomy. Because the details posted by this internet user were so thorough, many readers began to suspect that the poster was actually the perpetrator of the case. As the situation continued to escalate, this post also attracted the attention of the police. The police then summoned the poster for questioning, and through conversation and observing the person's facial expressions, they ultimately ruled out any suspicion against him. Moreover, based on the estimated age of the murderer at the time of the crime, the poster was only 14 years old when the incident occurred and was simply incapable of committing the crime. From this, it can be inferred that the murderer should now be at least 46 years old. So if one day someone of the appropriate age talks to you about the Nanjing University dismemberment case and is able to recount the details of the incident in depth, even providing reasonable clues beyond what is publicly known, then you should be highly alert. If this person also previously worked in one of the professions mentioned earlier, then I think you know what you should do. Although this case has been called the perfect crime by many netizens, the Nanjing police have never given up on investigating it. We believe that one day the truth of the case will come to light.